I followed Alexander the Great believing I was marching beside a god. I thought we were building an empire that would last forever. But behind the victories, behind the cheers, I saw something no one speaks about: the wives of defeated enemies forced into unity, the silent tears hidden behind royal weddings, and the price of glory paid by the innocent. I was there the night it began. I helped guard the tents. And I learned a truth history tries to forget. This is the story of what conquest really cost us. I was 19 when I followed Alexander into Persia, and I truly believed he was a god wearing armor. That night, after we took the city, I stood outside a burning palace and heard women screaming inside. I remember whispering to myself, "This is victory, so why does it sound like death?" Darius stood beside me, his sword still red. He looked at the flames and said, "Philippos, this is what conquest sounds like." I swallowed hard. "We won. That means it's over." He shook his head. "It never ends. It only changes shape." Alexander walked past us then, calm and shining like gold under the firelight. He did not look tired. He did not look cruel. He looked certain. "A kingdom falls with its men," he said loudly so we could all hear. "But its future is born from its women." The soldiers cheered. I felt cold. I stepped forward. "My king, what do you mean?" He looked at me, and for a moment I felt proud that he even noticed me. "I mean we will not waste what we have conquered." Darius muttered under his breath, "Listen carefully, Philippos." Later that night, we were told that King Artavasdes had been defeated. His body was displayed in the courtyard. One of our captains shouted, "The royal women are not to be harmed." Some men groaned in disappointment. Another captain added, "They are to be protected by order of Alexander." I asked, "Protected how?" He smirked. "You will see. I am Philippos, son of a poor Macedonian farmer. I joined this army because my father once told me, hunger is a worse master than any king. I wanted gold. I wanted land. I wanted to matter." Darius had surrendered weeks earlier and chosen to fight beside us. One night he told me, "I fight because I want to live. You fight because you want glory. We are not the same." I laughed back then. "We are brothers now." He looked at me with sad eyes. "You do not conquer a land by swords. You conquer it by bloodlines." I did not understand him. When the palace gates were broken, I followed my unit inside. Smoke burned my throat. I heard crying behind silk curtains. A young woman was dragged past me by two soldiers. She fought them, screaming, "We are not trophies. Let me go." One of the soldiers laughed. "The king has plans for you." I grabbed his arm. "What plans?" He shoved me away. "Marriage, boy. Union. Peace." The woman looked at me. "Is this your peace?" I had no answer. Outside, Alexander spoke again. "We will unite these lands. Macedonian and Persian will become one." A soldier cheered. "Through marriage?" Alexander nodded. "Through legacy." Darius leaned close to me. "Now do you see?" I watched Queen Roxana's cousin forced toward a guarded tent. I heard her sob, "My husband is dead. Leave me with my grief." A guard replied, "Your grief now belongs to Macedon." I felt something break inside me. I walked up to Darius. "This isn't right." He asked quietly, "Will you say that to Alexander?" I looked toward the firelight where my king stood like a statue of gold. My voice failed me. That was the moment my loyalty began to crack. When Alexander announced the mass marriage, I stood among the soldiers and felt my stomach twist. "We will unite the world," I heard him say with a bright smile. "Macedonian and Persian will become one blood." The men around me cheered. I forced myself to clap, but my hands felt heavy. That same evening my captain pointed at me. "Philippos, you will guard Lady Yasmin, widow of General Farid." "Guard her from what?" I asked. "From escape," he replied. "And from harm. She is valuable." Valuable. The word stayed in my head. When I entered her chamber, she was sitting by a small window, wrists free but watched by two soldiers. I dismissed them and stepped forward with a cup of water. "I brought this for you," I said. She looked at me with cold, storm-dark eyes. "Do you feel proud, soldier?" "I serve my king," I answered quickly. She stood up. "That was not my question." I swallowed. "Pride is not my place." She stepped closer. "My husband is dead. My home is ash. Tomorrow I will be given to a stranger in the name of peace. Tell me, do you feel proud guarding that?" Her voice did not shake. Mine did. "It is an order." "And if your king is wrong?" The question struck harder than any blade. I looked away. "Alexander believes this will stop future wars." She laughed softly. by forcing widows into new beds? I had no reply. The next day I overheard two officers talking outside her door. One of the nobles refused, one said. What happened? She was sent away. Sold east. I stepped in. Sold? I thought this was unity. One officer smirked. Unity requires obedience. That night Darius found me by the outer wall. You look troubled, he said. I am only tired. Do not lie to me, he replied. You care for her. I barely know her. He crossed his arms. Then why do you stand outside her door longer than your shift? I felt exposed. What do you want me to do? Help her escape. I stared at him. Are you mad? I would be executed. He stepped closer. And if you do nothing, what does that make you? His words burned. She has nowhere to go, I argued. The city is full of our soldiers. Then help her run farther, he insisted. There are villages beyond the river. I shook my head. If we are caught, we both die. He grabbed my shoulder. Philippos, listen to yourself. You fear death more than injustice. I pulled away. I fear useless death. He sighed. Sometimes a useless death is the only honest one. Later I brought Yasmin bread. You look pale, she said. I heard what happens to those who refuse. She studied my face. And will you watch it happen to me? I do not know, I admitted. She whispered, chains made of silk still choke. I left her chamber with those words echoing in my mind. That was when I began to see the horror behind the glory. Alexander summoned us to a grand feast inside the captured palace. I stood among officers while musicians played and wine flowed like victory itself. He raised his cup and said, We do not destroy nations. We absorb them. Their women will bear children who are both Persian and Macedonian. There will be no more enemies. The hall roared with approval. I forced a smile, but my eyes searched for Yasmin. I saw her across the room, dressed in silk, guarded but displayed. Tears shone in her eyes though her face stayed calm. Darius leaned toward me. Does this look like peace to you? It looks like power, I whispered. Alexander continued, Through marriage we end rebellion. Through blood we secure loyalty. An officer shouted, To unity. I muttered, To control. After the feast, I was assigned to escort Yasmin back to her chamber. As we walked, she said softly, Your king thinks he is merciful. He believes this will stop war, I replied. She stopped and faced me. He has stolen our future. I felt my chest tighten. If the children grow without hate, maybe? Without hate, she cut in. They will grow from fear. I had no answer. Inside her chamber, she lowered her voice. Tell me, Philippos, if you were forced to marry the daughter of the man who killed your father, would you call it unity? No, I admitted. Then why do you defend it? Because I am afraid, I said before I could stop myself. She studied me. Afraid of death? Afraid of betraying the only life I know. Later that night, I overheard two guards whispering outside the courtyard. One of the noble women refused again, one said. What did Leonidas do? Sent her east. Sold her to traitors. No marriage for rebels. My blood ran cold. I stepped forward. Sold? I thought the king promised protection. One guard shrugged. Protection for the obedient. I found Darius near the stables. They are selling the ones who resist. He clenched his fists. Now do you see the full plan? I felt sick. Marriage for those who bow. Chains for those who stand. The next morning I marched to my commander's tent. Leonidas, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, this is not honor. He looked up slowly. Careful, Philippos. Selling women who refuse marriage, this is not the unity we were promised. He stepped close to me. Honor is written by the victor. They are human beings, I insisted. His hand struck my face before I finished. The sound echoed inside the tent. You are a soldier, he said coldly. Your duty is obedience. I tasted blood and anger. And if obedience is wrong? He leaned in. Then pray you never have to choose. I walked out shaking. That night I returned to Yasmin's chamber. She saw the mark on my face. You spoke, didn't you? Yes. And? They told me honor belongs to the victor. She stepped closer. And what belongs to you? I met her eyes. A choice. For what? She whispered. I looked at the guarded doors, the torches, the silent hall. For once, I said quietly, I will choose for myself. That night I made my choice. I planned everything in whispers. During the wedding feast, I told Darius behind the stables, the guards will be drunk. I can switch posts at the north gate. He nodded. I will have horses ready beyond the river. If we are caught, we die, I said. He met my eyes. If we do nothing, she dies slowly. That night I went to Yasmin's chamber. Be ready, I whispered. When the music grows loud, I will come. She searched my face. Why are you risking this? Because I cannot live with myself if I don't. She touched my hand briefly. Then whatever happens, know that I saw your courage. The day of the mass wedding arrived. The palace glittered with silk and gold. Laughter filled the halls, forced and sharp. Darius found me near the courtyard. Everything is set. After sunset, I said. We move. He hesitated. If something goes wrong. It won't, I cut him off, though fear sat heavy in my chest. When the drums began, I slipped away toward Yasmin's tent. I pushed aside the curtain. Guards surrounded her. My heart stopped. Yasmin looked at me with fear, but also with something worse, understanding. One guard grabbed my arms. Philippos, you are expected. Expected? I asked, my voice shaking. A familiar voice answered behind me. Yes. I expected more from you. I turned and saw Alexander standing in the lamplight. You disappoint me, Philippos, he said calmly. I dropped to my knees. My king, I only wanted. You wanted to defy destiny, he interrupted. This is not destiny, I said. It is force. His eyes hardened. It is vision. I looked toward Yasmin. She is not your symbol. She is a person. Alexander stepped closer. And I am building a world larger than one person's sorrow. My voice cracked. By breaking her? Silence filled the tent. He gestured to the guards. Bring him up. They forced me to stand. Do you know why I know of your plan? He asked quietly. I searched the room. No. He spoke one word. Darius. My breath left me. No. He confessed, Alexander continued. Pain loosens loyalty. I felt the world tilt. You tortured him? He chose to resist, he replied. Just like you. I shouted, where is he? Alive, he said. For now. Yasmin stepped forward despite the guards. If there is punishment, give it to me. Alexander looked at her almost kindly. You will serve your purpose. She turned to me. Do not beg. I felt tears burn my eyes. I am sorry. She whispered, do not let them turn you into stone. The guards pulled her away. I struggled. Where are you taking her? Alexander answered without emotion. Some rebellions must disappear. Her voice echoed once more from outside. Philippos. Then she was gone. As punishment, I was forced to stand guard at the mass wedding of Susa. Hundreds of couples stood in rows. Macedonian officers smiling proudly. Persian women silent beside them. Music played. Alexander stood at the center and took Roxana's hand. This is love, he declared. The crowd cheered. I stared at the empty space where Yasmin should have been. Leonidas walked past me and whispered, you are lucky to be alive. I replied softly, I do not feel lucky. He smirked. History will remember this as greatness. I looked at Alexander as he kissed Roxana before the crowd. But I knew the truth. That night I stopped seeing him as a hero. I saw him as a man hungry for control. Years passed and I marched east under the same banners, but I no longer felt pride when they waved above me. One night by the fire, an officer laughed and said, I am sending my Persian wife back to her father. I am done playing husband. Another replied, I left mine months ago. She cries too much. I stared at the flames and said, what about the children? The first man shrugged. They will survive. I muttered, that was not the promise. He looked at me. Promises change. Unity had turned into resentment. I heard it in the camps. A young Persian recruit once told me, my mother was forced to marry one of you. I asked quietly, does she hate us? He answered, she hates herself for surviving. His words cut deep. Alexander grew restless as we moved farther east. I heard him shout inside his tent one evening. You doubt me? I heard him roar at a general. A voice answered, the men are tired. Tired men can still obey, he snapped. Later, Leonidas approached me. Watch your loyalty. The king senses weakness. I replied, does he sense regret? Leonidas frowned. Regret is for lesser men. Rebellions began in whispers. Villages refused supplies. Soldiers deserted at night. Darius returned to duty months after his torture. I found him alone near the river. You survived, I said. Barely, he answered. Why did you confess? He looked at me with hollow eyes. Because pain breaks ideals. I whispered, I never forgave you. He nodded. You should not. I survived battles after that, but inside I felt empty. Sometimes in my sleep, I heard Yasmin's voice. If your king is wrong, she would ask. I would wake with my heart racing. Then karma began its slow march. We reached Babylon and Alexander fell ill. Rumors spread fast. He drank too much, one soldier said. No, he was poisoned, another whispered. I stood guard outside his chamber as I once had outside that burning palace years ago. Inside I heard generals arguing. Who will rule? One demanded. He must name an heir, another insisted. I tightened my grip on my spear. The empire felt like cracked stone beneath my feet. Leonidas stepped out and looked at me. He asks for you. For me? I asked, surprised. Yes. Go. I entered the dim chamber. The air smelled of medicine and sweat. Alexander lay on the bed, smaller than I remembered. Philippos, he whispered. I am here, my king. He studied my face. You have grown colder. I have grown older, I replied. He gave a faint smile. Did we build something eternal? The question hung between us. I thought of abandoned wives, of children without fathers, of Yasmin's last cry. I wanted to tell him, no, you built it on fear. My throat tightened. He reached for my hand weakly. Speak honestly. I looked into his fading eyes. But I stayed silent. Alexander died before sunrise. I was outside his chamber when the doors opened and a general announced, the king is gone. No one cried at first. We only stared at each other. Who rules now? Someone asked. Another replied, he said the strongest. I felt the words settle like poison. Within hours I heard shouting in the halls. He promised me command, one general yelled. You lie, another roared. The army follows me. I stood between them and said, the king's body is still warm. One of them pushed past me. Move, Philippos. History does not wait for grief. I watched them circle each other like wolves over fresh meat. Outside the palace, rumors spread fast. Will we go home? A soldier asked me. There is no home left, I answered. Then what was all this for? I had no answer. Soon the cracks widened. Armies split. Banners changed. Friends chose different sides. Leonidas approached me with hard eyes. Choose wisely. Stand with me. Stand for what? I asked. For survival. And what about unity? I said quietly. He scoffed. Unity died with him. The Persian wives suffered first. I heard officers say, send them away. They are liabilities. I stepped in once. They were promised protection. A captain laughed. Promises die with kings. I saw a woman dragged from her chamber, screaming, my son is his blood. A soldier answered coldly, that is the problem. Some were cast aside. Some vanished in the night. I confronted Leonidas. This is madness. He replied, this is power correcting itself. By killing women and children? By removing threats, he said flatly. All that suffering, for nothing. Months later, Babylon no longer felt like an empire. It felt like a carcass. I found Darius near the market years after the chaos began. He looked older, thinner, but alive. You survived, I said. So did you, he replied. We stood in silence before he spoke again. You see. See what? I asked. Blood forced together does not make peace. I closed my eyes. It only makes new wounds. He nodded. I left the army. So did I said. Do you ever think of her? He asked carefully. Every day. I never found Yasmin, I admitted. Maybe she escaped, he offered. Maybe, I said, though doubt lived in my chest. And if she did not? I looked away. Then this empire buried her without a grave. Darius placed a hand on my shoulder. We were young. That does not excuse us. No, he agreed. But it explains us. I returned to Macedon alone. When I reached my father's farm, he looked at me and asked, did you become great? I answered, no. I became tired. He studied my scarred face. Was it worth it? I thought of burning palaces, of forced weddings, of a king asking if his work was eternal. No, I said finally. It cost too much. At night I still hear her voice. If your king is wrong? Now I know the answer. I left the army not as a hero, but as a man who had seen what ambition does when it forgets mercy. Now I am old and my hands shake when I hold a cup. Young men still visit me and say, tell us about Alexander the Great. I look at them and ask, what do you wish to hear? His victories, one answers. How he conquered the world. I sigh. You already know those stories. Another smiles. They say he was unstoppable. He was, I reply. Until he wasn't. They laugh softly thinking I joke. One of them asks, were you there in Persia? I was there, I say. I saw cities burn. Was it glorious? He presses. I close my eyes. Glory is loud. Suffering is quieter. They exchange confused looks. What do you mean? They speak of battles won, I tell them. They do not speak of the women taken in the name of unity. One frowns. Taken. Yes, I answer. Married without choice. Moved like pieces on a board. But that was politics, he argues. Necessary. Necessary for whom? I ask. Silence fills the room. I lean back and whisper. I carry their voices inside me. Whose voices? A young soldier asks. A widow who asked me if my king was wrong, I reply. And was he challenges. I swallow. Yes. They stare at me as if I have cursed. You call him great, I continue. I called him king. Did you hate him? One asks. I admired him once, I admit. I feared him later. Why? He presses. Because I saw what he really did. They wait. He did not just conquer lands, I say slowly. He conquered lives. A young man shakes his head. History says he united nations. History forgets tears, I answer. Then why did you follow him? He asks. Because I was hungry for meaning, I reply. And blind to cost. They fall quiet. In the end, I say softly, even he could not control the empire built on forced love and silent tears. One whispers, so what is justice? I look at the fading light outside. If there is justice in this world, it is this. No empire built on broken hearts can last forever. They rise to leave. Before they step out, one turns back. What is the hardest truth you learned? I breathe slowly. Sometimes the greatest horror is not slaughter. They wait. It is survival without choice.